Some people are born to be leaders, some people born to be presidents. Others may be born into a family where both possibilities exist, but they miss their chance either by good fortune or good luck, depending on your viewpoint. Then we have presidents who believe it's their duty to sign off on executive orders because those beneath him or her are useless, at least in their opinion. That's a good place to start. Let's welcome back noted presidential historian, author of the New York Times bestseller, Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan, Craig Shirley. Craig, always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. And seeing as I just mentioned Ronald Reagan, I'm going to go ahead and start there. You recently wrote a column where you talked about Donald Trump being on the path of Ronald Reagan. I said that to some friends of mine who were Ronald Reagan devotees, and they gasped when they heard that, putting Donald Trump in the same breath. I get what you're saying. They called Reagan a racist. They called him irresponsible. They called him a lightweight. They mocked him. They mocked his hair. But didn't Ronald Reagan talk about substantive issues, something Donald Trump has pretty much avoided at this point?
Yes, absolutely, Ed. And what I was trying to do was trying to illustrate historically the similarity in circumstances between the two men, not the similarities between the two men. They're obviously vastly different men. But the same powers that be were arrayed against Reagan in the 60s and the 70s are also arrayed against Donald Trump. The establishment, the insiders, the Washington consultants who, said, as you said, Ronald Reagan was too old, he was too rigid, he was too conservative, he was too out of it. It was just too. And now the same forces, albeit now their sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters, are still defending the establishment. And that's really the essence of the similarity between the two, is they both challenge the status quo. But again, I'm just comparing circumstances, not men.
Would you, though, then believe that the people who say they want to vote for Donald Trump right now, would you think that they would look at Ronald Reagan and say, yeah, that's it, they're the same people? Do you think, and again, we're talking about the voters here and just the perception that they would look at it and say, I get it, they're almost the same person?
I couldn't agree more. I think that they do get it, in fact, better than the elites and the intelligentsia, who often, do their little parlor games in order to, please their friends. But the fact is that the American people have always gotten it when the elites have not, which is why the founders, Article 1 of the Constitution, put the power in the House of Representatives, not in the presidency or even the upper chamber of the Senate. It put it in the House because they believed in the ultimate wisdom and goodness of the American people, which explains also, the dichotomy between, when Reagan passed away, his approval rating was sky high among the American people, even as the American elites continued to attack him and deride him and mock him and call him simplistic and other worse names than that.
I alluded to Jeb Bush as we started this segment here. Jeb Bush said that his brother George was, quote, probably the most popular president among Republicans. I'm sure that you, like myself and many others, when we heard that, we went, you might want to pull back just a little bit on that. We know you love your brother, but as you pointed out, he might have been better off talking about his father than his brother.
Exactly. He might have been better off talking about his father. I guess he gets a pass because it's family and because it's a very well-known, loyal family and fiercely dependent on each other and all those other things that we admire about the Bush family. But to say that his brother is the most popular Republican today is just patently nonsense. Is that and the polls bear it out. We don't have to go on suppositions. We've got whether it was Reagan or Eisenhower or Lincoln. Is that all these Republican presidents are far and away ahead of George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush also, far and ahead of George W. Bush as far as popularity among Republicans in 2015.
Craig, I haven't asked you this. I only got 30 seconds left, but it comes right to mind. When we talk about Republicans and people who want a Republican president, in your mind, can you tell me right now who you believe is the best Republican representative of a president?
Well, I want to speak up in favor of, I like all of them. All of them channel some bit of Reagan. Nobody is completely Reagan, but and there are things to be admired about each of them. I will say I think that Ted Cruz intellectualizes Reagan better than most. He understands that Reagan believed in American conservatism, which put its faith and trust in the individual and not in centralized authority. So I think that right now Ted Cruz is best expressing what is Reaganism inside the Republican Party.
And he is right up there in the polls and maybe even challenging Donald Trump. We'll see. Craig Shirley, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, speaking of things presidential that don't work and are wasting everyone's time, let's turn to the wasteland of campaign ads. That's coming up next right here on The Hardline.